Hello, everyone. My name is Dave Hart, and I'll be your host for the Einstein Retirement Workshop's Social Security Filing Strategy Workshop tonight. Thanks for joining us. Let me turn on my chat function here so that we can communicate. I want to do some fun trivia before we get started tonight. I will use this as our check, our audio check as well. So if you're on, I hope you'll participate. We should have a little bit of fun right before the top of the hour. We've got about 7.5 minutes, 6.5 minutes, sorry, before we start. So let's just do some fun trivia. To join in, all you got to do is use the chat function. These are all multiple choice questions. Feel free to just jump in with your answer, A, B, C, or D. Here we go. How are the first three numbers of your Social Security number derived? Everybody has 9 numbers, 3, then 2, then 4. Those first three, where do they come from? Is it the zip code of your birth city, the zip code of the issuing Social Security office, they're random, or they represent the state where you were born? Just plug away. If you've got, if you find the chat function on the right side of your screen, just click it and throw in an answer, A, B, C, or D. A is your birth city, B, the zip code of the issuing Social Security office, C, random, or D, they represent the state where you were born. If you're just joining us, we're just doing some trivia. You can join in. We'll give you a second here to answer. I see some answers. Okay. All right. Again, if you've just joined, doing some quick trivia here just before we get started at the top of the hour. Not very much time at all, but we'll enjoy it while we can. There we go. There's another one. I see a D, a couple Ds. All right. We'll do a quick drum roll. Give you 5 seconds here to throw in your answer before we show. All right, here we go. The answer is B. It represents the zip code of the issuing Social Security office. So just like if you're a similar age to me, 48201. All right, I see it. Regina says 48201. So I don't know what your social is, and you shouldn't tell us, at least not here. But if that's the zip code of the issuing office, that makes sense. So here we go. It is the I got mine when I first got a job, and it represents part of the zip code of that Social Security office's zip code. All right, here we go. Next question. Why have more than 40,000 different people claimed 078051120 as their Social Security number? Is it A, that number was stolen and sold over 40,000 times? B, that Social Security machine got stuck and kept issuing the same number literally to 40,000 people? C, it was a copy of a real Social Security card number that was included in a wallet sold at Woolworths to thousands and thousands of people. What do you think? A, B, or C? We've got about 4.5 minutes left, so dig in. Let's enjoy together while we've got a couple minutes. All right, I see there's a couple of A's. Interesting. Okay, a couple of B's. If you've just joined us, we're just doing some quick trivia about Social Security before we get started. Feel free to join in. We're just about 3.5 minutes away from the top of the hour. All right, I see more A's. Go, there's some C's. All right, let's do it now. We're going to show you what it is. All right, it is C. This falls in the strange but true category. This was an actual Social Security card put inside, or a copy of it put inside a wallet that was sold at Woolworths to literally almost 1 million people 40,000 of them decided to use it. Since it was a real number, it worked. It was actually an assistance number, an actual Social Security card that was put in. They forgot to tell the printer not to use the actual number. It's strange but true. All right. Under what circumstances can you get a new Social Security number issued to you? Is it A, religious or cultural issues with certain numbers? B, you're experiencing ongoing issues of being the victim of identity theft? C, your number enables people to harass or endanger your life? Or D, all of the above? If you're on, please help us by participating. Just enjoy this while we've got a minute. We've got only about just a little over 2 minutes before we get started here. So if we hurry here, we can get one more question in. What do you think? A, B, C, or D? A is religious or cultural issues with certain numbers. B, you're experiencing the ongoing issues of identity theft. C, your number enables people to harass or endanger your life. Or D, all of the above. I see some C's, C and A, I see D's. Interesting. All right. Got a couple seconds here before we show. What do you think? Oh, there's more B's. Okay. Let's pull it up here. Hold on. It is D, all of the above. All you smart ones have picked that. It is any of those. So technically, everybody's right here. Any one of those will get you entitled to a new Social Security number. All right. I think this is probably the last question we're going to have time for. What year was the first Social Security benefit paid? Not collected, but paid. Is it A, 1936 for $28.17, B, 1937 for $19.67, or C, 1940 for $22.54? Now, to give you a little bit of a boost here, Social Security was signed into law, passed in Congress, signed into law in 1935. So what do you think? 1938 A, 1937 B, or 1940 C? I see a B, I see a C, I see, interesting. Got a couple different channels here tonight. There's some more C's. Oh, lots of C's. Interesting. All right, let's do the reveal here. It is C. So why so long? Why wait 5 years before we make a first payment? Well, the first people that received money from Social Security had never put a dime in. They were already 65 when Social Security was put into law. So and Social Security works as a sort of it's a pay-as-you-go system, but the money that we put in, or that was put in after 1935, went to pay the people that, quite frankly, were over 65 that had never put any money in. So they had to actually build that nest egg up enough to actually cover those before they could start paying it out. And that's how that happened. Okay. Let's ask our tech team to bring the actual workshop up. Thanks for participating. If you've just joined us, we were just participating in a quick trivia round of Social Security trivia before we got started. Here we go. All right, let's get started here. My name is Dave Harden. I'll do a little more formal introduction in a second. Let me just do a quick bit of housekeeping. So I'm often asked, how long does this take? This is soup to nuts, about an hour and 20 minutes. I will, that's just how long it takes. At the end of which I always do a Q&A, a question and answer period, answering your questions directly. You can help us dramatically by not waiting till then. If you've got a question and you know what it is, you don't need to wait. Just use the chat function, the same one we just used to do trivia. You can go in and actually type in your question right now, or at any time during the actual workshop. If you know one or something I say triggers one, just type it in. That way, at the end of the workshop, we don't have to wait. we will have questions to answer right away. No drag, no lull, and we can get going and started. Now, we're always welcome to take your questions if you don't put them in till then, but it helps us out immensely if you have some to get us started with before you start typing. Okay, that being said, let's get moving. Okay, again, my name is Dave Harden. I am a registered financial consultant at RFC. That's a designation for investment management and retirement planning issued by the IARFC, the International Association of Registered Financial Consultants. I also carry the NSSA, that's the National Social Security Advisor designation. It's the only college accredited designation in the country for Social Security and taxes. I'm also the author of the Social Security workbook that you will receive at the end of the evening. So, that being said, in addition to that, I own a registered investment advisory firm. I'm required by law to disclose that to you. And so it's called City Center Advisors. We have a couple of offices around the country, 1,231 client accounts in 43 states as of this morning. Very proud of the work we've done there. I own it with my son. We have done immensely well. We entered our second decade of business, and it has done it's done beyond our wildest dreams. That being said, I am also a fiduciary advisor. I carry a Series 65 license. That license makes me, gives me the, actually requires me to put myself out as a financial advisor. It means that I act as a fiduciary in all my dealings with you, with anybody, and certainly with the clients that I have and deal with and take care of. That being said, I want to make it clear this evening, that's not what we're going to talk about. I'm not here to pitch investments to you or tell you what's the hot tip of the day. That's not what we're talking about. We're going to talk about Social Security, but I'm required by law to explain this to you. Let's get moving. Okay. Why are we here? 10,000 baby boomers turn 65 every single day. 70,000 a week, 280,000 a month. Last year, 3.64 million of us. That's going to continue for about the next 10 or 11 years. It will continue beyond that, just at slightly slower levels, 9,000, 8,000. But in this, interestingly enough, this year, 2026, is probably one of the highest years. It's almost 11,000 every single day. And that will again continue for quite a while. It's a huge deal. 3.64 million of us last year. Now, that's interesting, but maybe more interesting is 65% of us, middle income Americans, you and me, derive more than 50% of our retirement income from Social Security. I don't, this is middle America. This isn't Elon Musk, the first trillionaire, but it's not the guy down, at the homeless shelter either. This is people that worked most of their lives and have some form of retirement one way or the other. They have Social Security, but Social Security is a huge part of their retirement. Since 1985, 84,000 corporations have eliminated pensions. I don't mean 84,000 people lost their pension. That would be horrible. But I mean 84,000 corporations. Some of those individual corporations had more than 100,000 employees. One day they had a pension. The next day they said, we're not doing this anymore. When I first started in the industry back in the late 70s, we used to call retirement a three-legged stool. Your Social Security, your savings, your pension. For the vast majority of us these days, unless you're one of the really lucky ones, it's a two-legged stool. And then maybe the most concerning of all is that 46.1% of us, almost half of us, currently pass away with less than enough to fund their own funeral. They're broke. And something happened and they ran out of money for almost half of us. Now, if that doesn't send a shiver down your spine, I don't know what would, but it should make you want to know why. Why is that happening? Why is it so unexpected and why aren't people prepared better? We'll talk about that tonight because it is a critical question about retirement. All right. Look, this is a interesting question. Do you insure your home or your car? Of course you do. Your health? Yeah. You have Medicare. If you have Social Security, you have Medicare. And Medicare is an insurance policy for your health and retirement. And so is Social Security, not for your health, but for your retirement income. Social Security is just one big insurance policy administered by the government. I know people call it an entitlement all the time. Disability might be an entitlement. You work 5 years, you get disabled, and you get a check for the rest of your life. But for the retirement program, we pay into it. We pay dearly into it, a tremendous amount. I'll talk about that in a little bit too. All right. So, what's the risk of outliving your income? This is a critical part of decision making in terms of when do you take your Social Security. This is census data. If you're a single male has a 50% chance of living to 85. That probably doesn't surprise many people. But you have a 25% chance of living to 92. This is for males. If you're a single female, a 50% chance you're living to 88, a 25% chance you're living to 94. And if you're a couple, two people who love one another, statistics really get interesting here. The male has a 50% chance now of living to 92, and the female, a 50% chance of living to 97. This is census data. Now, I cannot tell you how many people I sit down with and think, oh, I'm not going to live that long. I don't want to live that long. I heard this recently, a client that said, I don't want to live that long, Dave. I don't want to live into my 90s. And I simply said, listen, I hear you. I understand. But it's not that you're afraid to live into your 90s. You're afraid of what that might look like. But here's what happens, because I've been in the business long enough to see it, is you might say that when you're 65 or even 70. But when you're 92, 93 looks awfully good to us. And when you're 93, 94 looks even better. We don't want to go unless we're in deep, deep trouble. Well, so you might ask, why do couples live longer? Health. We look after one another. If my wife of almost 50 years sees something on my back, my sister in 2015 died of skin cancer. We were those kids in the 60s and early 70s that ran out first day of summer to get burned, not to get tan, because we have very light skin. It meant you got to get burned before you got tan. So we wanted to get it over with. We thought that was just smart. Oh, it's stupid. And she paid a horrible price for that. But my wife's terribly concerned that that might happen to me. So if she sees something that she doesn't like, a mole that is a bad color or bad shape or something, she doesn't even ask me. She just makes an appointment for the dermatologist. And I get it. I don't really argue with her. But that kind of thing, if you hear a rattle in somebody's chest when they're coughing, when you see something in their gait when they're walking, you say something to the doctor when you're having an appointment for them. And it makes a huge difference. We do better when we get treatment early. That's why we last longer. This is Ethel Carterham. She's actually 116. I apologize for this slide. And here's what's interesting. She's the oldest person in the world. She took the place of a sister Anak Lucas, who died at 116, who took the place of Connie Tanaka, who died at 119, who took the place of another woman in Jamaica who was 122, last name Brown. Here's what's fascinating. Ethel Carter's from England. But guess who the second oldest person in the world is? It's Naomi Whitehead. She's an American. She is an American. We are living longer and longer and longer, and you have to take that into account. Now, I'm not saying you're going to live to 115, but used to be when we started doing planning, people would say, "Oh, back in the 70s, people would say 80. Oh, maybe I'll make it to 80. I don't know. My parents died younger." Well, it has very little to do, unless they've passed on a genetic problem to you that you can't get rid of. Chances are you have a very different diet, very different health than your parents did. And we're living longer. I mean, our generation is called the sandwich generation for a reason. Many of us have our kids living in the basement, and we're taking care of our parents in the upstairs spare bedroom, or we're visiting them every day at the nursing home or at the assisted living facility. They call us a sandwich generation because our parents are still living in many cases. Some of you, I guarantee, with this many people on, somebody here has a parent that's over 100. I have somebody in my office that has a parent over 100. It's just happening more and more today, and you can't ignore it. So here's what we're going to cover today: benefit basics, strategies for married couples, options for divorced individuals, options for widows and widowers. Now, if you're single, you might be going, well, what about me? Social Security was created for you. These are the offshoots. But you see the next one, taxes. Man, do you got to pay attention. Everybody does. But boy, if you're single, batten down the hatches and let's figure out how to deal with this. And then, why is coordinating benefits so vital, so important? All right, let's get going here. All right, how do you qualify for Social Security? You had to work at a Social Security covered job, a place where you paid into Social Security and then your employer matched that. If you were self-employed, you know the bad news already. You paid both sides with zero discounts. They used the highest 35 years of earned wages to calculate your Social Security benefit. Why is that important? Well, you may have worked 50 years. They only count 35, the highest 35. It's not the first 35 or the last 35 or the middle 35. It's individual years prorated and then counted in addition to 34 other years, the highest ones, only the highest ones. Now, prorating is really important in this function because, look, if you earn $25,000 in, say, 1982, and you earn $125,000 in 2026, thinking, oh, well, that's certainly going to replace that $25,000. It's not. The proration on that 25,000 is almost 4.5 times. It's more like 135,000. So that won't get rid of your benefit this year. Your income this year won't get rid of that. But the workbook, by the way, will explain every one of these things so you can figure out exactly what each one represents. But it's also important to know that if you don't have 35 years, this is why you need to be really careful about planning to retire without having done the homework first. If you miss one of those years, let's say you have 34 years, you still qualify because you only need 40 credits. A credit is 1 quarter, January, February, March, April, May, June, and so on. So once you have 40 credits, which is 10 full years, but it could be spread out over 30. But once you have that, you qualify for a benefit for retirement. But that benefit is going to be very small if you only have 40 credits. The 35 years counts like this. Let's say, I had 34 years. They add up all the 34 years, they prorate them, and then add them all together. And then to determine my average annual income for Social Security benefit purposes, they divide by 35, not 34. If I have 30 years, they add them all up, prorate them, add them all up, and then divide by 35. Well, it's like adding a zero to a division problem. If I add a zero to a division problem, it lowers the product considerably. When I divide by that higher number, it knocks down the average a whole lot. Every year I didn't work or I didn't get a income over those 35 years, it lowers my average dramatically. So if you're thinking, hey, I should retire this year, and you haven't checked to make sure you've got your 35 years in, and you haven't checked to make sure that those are that the number that you want them to be or that they were is the actual number recorded, because that mistake happens all the time. I've had years myself where I worked 1990, I think it was 1996. I had a good income, but somehow that income didn't make it onto my Social Security report. I've had clients that had this problem. I had a client once that had 9 zeros in a row during the middle of their career. Turns out, when we sat down with them, I said, something's not right here. Based on your income, your benefit should be way higher. We pulled their report and realized there's a bunch of zeros there. And I asked, were you out of the country? Were you sick? What happened? No, I worked. I had a small company that I worked for. I filed taxes, everything happened. But turns out the small company was an individual that collected all the money for his FICO payments, but never turned them in, pocketed them. And it never got reported or recorded on his account. Now, we pulled a 4506T, that's a request for his tax transcripts for each given year that he had zeros. Sure enough, they came back with copies of his tax filings. We showed those to Social Security and the IRS, and within, I don't want to make it sound too quick, but several months, I think it was probably 3 months, they corrected it. And boy, did it make a huge difference in how much Social Security benefit he was going to receive. And by the way, it's not his responsibility to collect the tax. The IRS does that. They went after the employer, not his fault. He paid the tax. So you need to make sure that yours doesn't reflect something wrong. Now, once you have those 40 credits, you've earned a benefit. Used to be there were some exclusions or reductions, but they're all gone away. I'm going to make this really quick. The Social Security Fairness Act used to be if you worked for the government or you got a pension from the military or railroad or state, local governments, some school districts, you were affected by that. They reduced or sometimes even eliminated your Social Security benefit because you had those pensions. But last year, 2025, the Social Security Fairness Act took place, and that was all undone. You don't have to worry about this anymore. It's all taken care of. None of it is a problem. All right. You contribute 6.2% of your income up to a maximum income this year of $184,500. Any income over that 6.2 never counts. You don't pay it. You just get a bump of 6.2 in your paycheck. And then your employer matches that for a total of 12.4. 12.4% is 1/10 of 1% less than 1/8 of your pay. Every single paycheck you've ever had, essentially 1/8 of it has been put away on your behalf to Social Security. Now, there's additional put away for Medicare, but that's it. It's a huge amount. For most of you, it's way more than you realize. Business Insider Magazine did an article about 4 or 5 years ago. It was in the beginning of COVID. They did a study, took an average couple, $50,000 incomes, that took a husband and wife. Between them, had contributed a prorated amount of between the husband and wife with a $50,000 income, listen to this, between Medicare and Social Security, $742,000 have been collected on their behalf over their lifetime at age 65. Now, some of you are saying, hey, can I just get that back? And I totally hear you, but that's not the way it works. But that is a huge amount of money. Now, today's contributions cover today's benefits. Basically, Social Security is a pay-as-you-go system. It's been that way since its inception in 1935. When it was signed into law, it was signed in to protect old age people. In fact, it wasn't named Social Security. It was called Old Age Benefits, something I can't even remember the name of it. It's been so long. But it was set up that way. And it was set up so that the people, this is done in the middle of the Depression, 1935, people over 65 were in desperate straits. In desperate straits. And so what happened is the people under age 65 started paying into the system, and that money was paid out to the people over 65 that at the beginning of this had never paid a dime or a nickel to Social Security. It was just to keep them out of poverty. Now, this really worked well because the amount of people over 65 in the middle of the Depression was tiny. In fact, one of the most interesting things that I find about Social Security when it started is the benefit age started at age 65. There was no 62. You couldn't get it before 65. And the average lifespan in our country at the time was 63. This was not a huge program at the beginning, but the next group that paid for those people was significantly larger, and so it was easy to cover. And then our parents' generation was significantly larger than their parents' generation, and it easily covered them. And then we threw in with them to help cover. And then during the Reagan administration in the 80s, there were as many as 40 people paying into Social Security for every single recipient receiving a benefit. But do you see the problem? Each of those generations bigger and bigger and bigger. Anybody know how many millennials there are? 77 million baby boomers, 81 million millennials, barely 1 to 1, which makes us wonder about solvency. But don't worry too much. Congress saw this coming. They just didn't prepare quite enough. So look, 1983 was this incredibly important year for Social Security and for baby boomers. It's the year that Congress, Trent Lott and Bob Dole and the Reagan administration all got together and realized we have a serious problem. Baby boomers are going to break this. They're going to throw it asunder. And we have to change things, dramatically change things. So it's the year that you got the letter. Now, I don't know if you remember the letter. The letter is the letter that you got in August of 1983 from the Social Security Administration. It probably had to stick out to you. You probably don't remember it. I do because it's what I do for a living. But my wife and I got the letter on the same day. The letter said something like this. I'm paraphrasing. From our inception, from Social Security's inception in 1935, FRA, full retirement age, has always been 65. But no longer for you. If you're born between 1943 and 54, it's no longer 65, it's 66. And if you're born after 1954, for every year, add 2 months. So 55 is 66 and 2 months. 56 is 66 and 4 months, and so on, until you reach birth year 1960. If you're born at 1960 or after, it's 66 and 12 months. It's 67. And then it stopped. Now, I remember this so well because the next day at work, I'm having a conversation with somebody about this because I was concerned. Now, maybe not for what you think, but I'll tell you what I was concerned about in a second. But I'm having this conversation about this very item, and somebody, a couple 10 feet away from us, overheard me. And they said something that I had never heard before, but I've heard a ton since. Why are you worried about Social Security? It's not going to be around when you retire anyway. Well, look, they were just flat out wrong. But more importantly, that wasn't even what I was worried about. I was worried, how many more letters am I going to get? Are they going to send me a letter in 5 years telling me it's 68, and 5 more years that it's 69, and then 70, and then by the time I retire, it's going to be 72, 74, 75? How can I do that? How can I prepare for that moving target? Interestingly, you and I both know the answer is we never got another letter. That's changed in 1983, never changed since. Now, this isn't the only thing that Congress did in 83, but I'll talk about the second thing later. But it brings up the question of solvency. How are we going to deal with this? And where is it at? So it's fully funded 2035. I have to correct that. The Social Security Trust issued they put out their annual letter, literally Friday night. And the new letter says that it's actually solvent for full benefits to the third quarter of, I wrote it down, to third quarter of 2034. So it's very close, but that's it. And it funds roughly 83 cents on the dollar after that. Now, that's from ongoing collections. So they have enough money. So look, the idea that Social Security is going broke is a misnomer. It's not. It is not going to stop funding benefits. The question is, can it fund the whole amount? And the answer is, it's sort of a weird answer. The answer is it can't, but it will. And it's a worst case scenario, you get 83 cents on the dollar. But the problem isn't the 83 cents, it's the 17 cents. How do they come up with that? There's a lot of proposals. I'm going to tell you what they are, and then I'm going to tell you why I don't think this is a problem. And I know everybody here has heard, oh, it's going broke. It's going this. It's going that. They're going to cut our benefits. They're going to do this. I don't believe any of that's going to happen. And I'll tell you why in a minute. Here are the four basic proposals. Increase the minimum retirement age. Currently it's 62. They could raise it back up to 64. Used to be minimum 65. So they could do that. Will that fix the problem? No, but it helps. They could increase the full retirement age. Right now, 66 or 67 to 70 or 72. By the way, if that happened, it wouldn't affect you. Unless there's some really young people on here, it wouldn't affect you. Because you'd be prorated in, grandfathered in. Here's the one that absolutely fixes the problem. It would have fixed the problem 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago when it was first proposed, but they didn't do it. Almost 5 years ago or so, the OMB did a study and said that if we raised the Social Security payroll tax, that's what I talked about a little earlier, from 6.2 to 7 point, by a point, half a point, 6.7 to you, 6.7 to your employer. It would have fixed the problem for almost 70 years, but they didn't do it. I assure you, based on what the Senate had a conference on this, open conference on this, a little more than a month ago, about 6 weeks ago, and that won't do it anymore. They'd have to raise it more than that. But they're at least talking about what they have to do to fix the problem now, which is really, really good for you and me. But that would fix it. This would fix it. I don't know what the amount is, but whatever it is, it would fix it. And then the one that nobody wants to have happen is reduce benefits. Oh, just pay people 83 cents on the dollar. Don't worry about it. Here's the problem. That can't happen. And here's the rub. Here's why when you hear people talk, look, the reason people talk about it, there's two reasons. One is statute says that if they don't have the money, they shouldn't pay it. They should just pay the lesser amount. But statutes were written before this problem existed. And I'll explain why the other thing is. Well, let me explain the three reasons I'm absolutely convinced they're not going to reduce benefits. I went to a conference about a year ago in Coronado Bay, California. It was 200 of the top advisors in the country were asked to attend. I was surprised and honored that I was included. Some of the guys that put it on were heroes of mine, people that I listen to, that I read, that I look up to. But in that conference, which was very well done, they had breakout sessions and they had some of the best speakers I've ever seen. But one of those was on Social Security. And I couldn't not go. I attended that conference. And when I did, I was pleasantly surprised when they brought in the speakers. The first one is a former director of the Social Security Administration. That's a massive job. And I hadn't met him, but I'd seen him and heard him speak before. I didn't know the two other guys, but the fourth person was another former director of the Social Security Administration, one from each party. So I figured I'm going to get some really interesting takes on this. And they did a great roundtable, but at the end they did exactly what I'm going to do tonight. They offered a comprehensive Q&A. Ask your questions, we'll answer them. And when the first question came, nobody was surprised. A feather could have dropped. Everybody knew what the question was going to be. It was going to be about solvency. What's going to happen? What are they going to do? Here's what both of them said. Not going to happen. Not going to run out of money. They're not going to let that happen. They're going to pay the full amount of the benefits, period. How can you be sure? Because we're sure. And then one of them said this, and it's one of the reasons I'm pretty darn confident about this. 5 years ago, it would have been 4 years ago last year, 5 years ago, in the middle of COVID, at the very beginning of COVID, within 2 weeks of COVID, the House and Senate of the United States government, under no duress, because they thought this pandemic might affect the economy, it might throw us into a depression. This is a guess, by the way. They didn't know what was going to happen. They came up with $5 trillion for things like PPP loans and programs and money to people, all in the hopes of staving off a possible economic confrontation because COVID was going to make people sick. Did we need it? Debatable. I don't know. But it happened out of the blue. Not one recipient, not you, not me, not anybody paid a nickel for what they got. Not a nickel for what they got. No man, woman, or child in the United States contributed to a fund for any period of time to earn or garnish or guarantee any payment to them for that. And yet they did it. Every one of you has paid into Social Security for at least 10 years, but most of you have paid 30, 40, 50 years into this fund with a promise of a benefit, not some benefit, not, oh, we'll see how much is there and we'll pay you what we can, for a specific amount that you earned. It is not something that is at a whim. I know people refer to this as a government program that is an entitlement, but you don't pay into an entitlement to get a benefit. You get it because you're entitled to it. Here's the deal. They're going to pay you. Here's what the other one said, and I think this is more compelling still, and then I'll tell you my take. Here's the other one. If they don't pay you the full amount of your benefit, it would be like somebody going to cash in a T-bill and the government saying, "Oh, sorry, our debt's too high, we can't pay you. We'll pay you this, but we won't pay you the whole thing." If that happened even once, our government's credit, what's called the full faith and credit of the United States government, which is what we are, a fiat government in terms of banking. Everything depends. Every single debt we have depends. Every financial transaction almost in the world depends on the full faith and credit of the United States government. If we didn't pay it, if our government refused to pay it, if they couldn't pay it, it would collapse. Not Social Security. Everything would collapse. Who would do business with us? Who would trust us to pay our bond payments? Who would pay anything? The answer is no one. And they know that. They absolutely know it. Now here's the third one, and it's my take, and this was not one of the two things that they said. Along with Social Security is Medicare. Guess what? For a long time now, Medicare has not had enough money to pay all the benefits. Guess what? They still pay them. It comes directly out of the general fund every single month, every week, every day. Every single Medicare benefit is paid from the trust fund, and then what isn't in the trust fund comes out of our general fund. Now, it's a little two-faced of them to suggest that they would do that, but not do the same thing for Social Security. Now, are there things they could do to fix this? Yes, absolutely. Simple things. The government is working on them. I watched that Senate meeting 6 weeks ago. They are fully aware of everything they need to do and can do. And they sounded for a long time, I haven't heard them committed to it. They are sounding very committed. They know this is coming around the corner and they can't fix it. The fact that this has gone from 2 years ago, it was 2036, now it's in 2034, is scaring them. And they realize, hey, that's 9 years away. What happens when it's 3 years away? It's just more expensive. They're going to fix it. All right. I hope that calms you a little, because when you get, look, you have to ask the question, why are all these agencies, why are they telling me about this stuff? Well, look, I'm not disparaging anybody, but I know guys on YouTube that will tell you a bad story about Social Security. They have no background, no training, no credentials, nothing. I know one guy that drives around in a Winnebago and goes to beaches, parks his Winnebago, gets out and records messages about Social Security. You need to take it as soon as you can because it's going to go broke. And he gets millions of views. Now, I don't know how many of you post YouTube videos, but you get 1 million views, you make some money. Do you think he's doing that because he's an expert? He's not. He's doing it because we feed into it. Look, what's the Winston Churchill quote? A lie makes it halfway around the world before the truth can get its pants on in the morning. People like to make money. And YouTube is not a place to find an answer by a random person who doesn't know anything about this. But they're telling you in their mind, hey, you need to take this right away. But they're making tons of money by doing that. And so is look, I'll tell you the other reason that the government likes to let you think this is going to happen. But I'll do that in a minute. Well, I'll do it right now. Here it is. Look, if you take your benefit at full retirement age, either 66 or 67, you get 100%. If you take it as early as 62, you get less. You get 75%. If you delay taking it, you get what's called DRCs, delayed retirement credits. 8%, not compounding, but they are stacking. So 8% plus 8% plus 8% plus 8%, it's 132%. The difference between taking your benefit at 62 and getting 75%, and waiting until 70 and getting 132% is 177% more. It's like getting a full retirement age benefit of 100% and a 62 age benefit of 75% together. It's a huge deal. Now, yeah, but if I die early, Dave, if you die early, you will not regret this. You can't. But if you don't die early, you may deeply regret doing this. And that's really what you need to think about. I can't predict when you'll live to, and neither can you. But we are all living longer than we thought. All of us are living longer than we thought. And we have to factor that into what we're doing here. Okay, 3 distinct benefits. You get a retired worker's benefit. That's your benefit, earned entirely by you. A spousal benefit, interestingly enough, is still earned by you. My spouse, I've been married not quite 50 years. My wife has earned a spousal benefit through me. She could have never worked a day in her life. Now, she did, but she could have never worked a single day. She's still entitled to that benefit. It is entirely produced as a result of my contributions to Social Security. And then widow, widower, or survivor benefits again. The widow doesn't get them because of their contribution. It's the deceased widow or widower that made them possible. And they could have, again, never worked a day in their life and earned them. Okay. Bipartisan Budget Act 2015. I'm going to do this super quick, lightning quick. Forgive me, but this is really old. It was created in 2015. It changed your ability to go in and to file a claim and suspend that claim, say at 62, and then have your spouse come in literally the next day and file a claim for spousal benefits based on you. And then collect those spousal benefits while their benefit grew, while your benefit grew, all the way to full retirement age, all the way to 70 if you wanted. It allowed them to collect that extra benefit while their benefit was growing. This has all been taken away. Now, if they go into claim, if you aren't taking your benefit, they can't even get the spousal benefit. And if you take it and then they take theirs and you stop yours, theirs stops too. So it doesn't work anymore. But why do I have this on here? Why do I have to bring it up? Because if you were, and this is all people born prior to 1954, if you're born after January 2nd, 54, there's this one piece that will not let me get rid of this. It's called deemed filing. So when they changed this law, they added deemed filing. Deemed filing is this. If you go in to file and you ask for a spousal benefit or whatever benefit you want, they don't even listen to you anymore. They go to their computer, and on the day that you file, the largest benefit available to you is the only one you can take. Well, what's wrong with that, Dave? It's the largest. Well, because taking it at that time might actually be the worst thing you can do. Because deemed filing also means that once you take that benefit, you have exercised your one and only right to take benefits. You can't switch. So if there's another benefit later on or catches up and exceeds it, sorry, Charlie, you can't do that. The only exception to that is for widow or widower benefits. That's it. Because of this, because deemed filing was added to this rule, it's all about timing now. It's about understanding that when you take your benefit makes more difference than how much it is at the time that you take it in terms of what's in it for you long term. Because of that, it's one of those things that you have to pay attention to now. All right, for spousal benefits, you have to be married at least 1 year to collect. Primary worker must have filed. So again, I'm not quite 70. When I turn 70, I'll file. My wife can't collect the spousal benefit until I do that. She can collect her own, but she cannot collect the spousal benefit from me until I am collecting. Generally, you must not qualify for a benefit on your own that is equal to or greater than one half of the primary worker's PIA. PIA stands for primary insurance amount. For your benefit, your full retirement age benefit, it's based on your 35 years of income prorated, and then that determines the average, determines how much you get as a benefit. But your spousal benefit depends on your PIA. It's a convoluted methodology that gets you to within a dollar or two of your PI of your full 35 years your FRA amount, full retirement age benefit. It's very close, and it's almost not worth bringing up, but it is the technical thing that gets you there. The workbook will explain how to figure that out for you personally. But then you get 50% of the PIA, not 100%, 50%. So here's an example. John's primary insurance amount at full retirement age is $2,000. Jane, his spouse, would be eligible for one half at her full retirement age. She get $1,000. Pretty simple. But there's a couple of caveats. If you take your full benefit at 66 or 67, you get 100%. Take it early as 62, you get 75%. Well, you get 100% of your 50% if you're filing for spousal benefits at your full retirement age. But if you file early as 62, you get less, not 75% of that, but 70%. In the example we just did, John's $2,000 at full retirement age, Jane gets half. She gets $1,000, but at 62, she gets 70% of half, or $700, not $1,000. Interestingly, if you delay, you get these wonderful DRCs, 8% plus 8% plus 8% plus 8%. At 70, 132%. If you delay taking your spousal benefit, you get nothing. Nada. Not a dime. You get 100% of your FRA divided by 2, or your spouse's FRA divided by 2. And worse, there's no DRCs, no delayed retirement credits for spousal benefits. Worse, if you think that it is, and this happens to people all the time, they think, oh, those benefits are growing. And so you delay. You turn full retirement age, but you say, no, I'm going to wait. And then a year from now, you look at your benefit chart and realize it hasn't gone up at all. So you call Social Security and they say, sorry, full retirement age benefits, once you hit that, your spousal benefit is maxed out. It doesn't grow. And you say, oh, well, can I file backwards to the date that it turned? No. If I make a mistake on my own benefit, I can file back as much as a year. They'll send me 12 payments all in one bulk amount, and then they'll start my benefit right up after that. But spousal benefits don't work that way. You cannot file in arrears. You can only file them going forward. If you've made this mistake, it has cost you, and you need to fix it right away. All right, survivor benefits. At the death of the first spouse, a surviving spouse can receive a maximum of either his or her own benefit, the benefit of the deceased. So I can take mine, or I can take hers. Very simple. Or 82.5% of the benefit of the deceased if the deceased filed early. You remember when I said I was talking about solvency, and I was so upset about people giving bad information to people? It has a consequence. Over the last 5 years, 65% of us have taken our benefit before the age of 65. Listen to this. 40% of us, 2 in 5 of us, have taken our benefit within a month of the day that we turned 62. We threw away thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars of lifetime benefits because we were scared. How do I know we were scared? Because we have done survey after survey asking people, why are you taking your benefits so early? 2 reasons overwhelm the answers. Number one, the first and biggest answer. I'm afraid Social Security is going to go broke. I've heard it's going to go broke. I've heard that it's not going to be able to pay people. I want to get my benefit as early as I can before it runs out of money. Number two, well, what if I die? I paid all this money in. What if I die? Well, in this case, in a survivor benefit, if you're married to someone, when you die, they get your benefit. If yours is larger, they get your benefit. But if you took it at 62, it's tremendously shortened. If you didn't take it at all, they get your full retirement age benefit, even if you died early. If you take it early, they get your benefit. But because the government has seen this happen and it wasn't expected, it wasn't something they were trying to make happen, and because it's leaving so many widows and widowers with far less, because when one of you dies, you collect one benefit, the larger of the two. You don't get both benefits, so you lose one. So not only do you lose a benefit, but if you pick the smaller benefit by taking it early, it's compounded the problem so much that the government stepped in and said, not 75%, we'll bump it up to 82.5. It's not much, but at least it's something. All right. Most common mistakes for spousal benefits. Higher wage earner files early and shortchanges the survivor benefits. This happens all the time. Both delay past full retirement age. Nobody claims spousal benefits at their full retirement age. They think they're growing, and mistakenly, they find out the hard way. All right. Divorced individuals. To collect divorced spouse benefits, you must have been married for 10 full years in a row to the same person. So no stopsies and starties. You can't be married for 5 years, divorced for 2, remarry for 5 years. That's not a 10-year marriage. Has to be in a row. And it can't be with 2 different people. You can have a 7-year marriage and a 3-year marriage. Isn't 10 years of marriage. It's got to be to the same person. And you can't currently be married. If you were married for 10 years and you divorce and you remarry, you don't have divorce spouse benefits after 1 year. You have new spousal benefits. Now, here's interesting news. If you divorce again or your new spouse passes away, those previous divorce spouse benefits become available to you, and you have some options. But the same benefit amounts and reductions apply for early claiming as they do for regular spousal benefits. There's no difference between a divorce spouse benefit and a spousal benefit. None, with one exception. And it actually favors the divorced spouse. Again, I've been married almost 50 years. If my wife goes to file for spousal benefits, she can't, because I haven't filed to collect benefits. And until I'm collecting, she can't collect. But if we had been divorced for 2 years, I don't even have to file anymore. She can collect. Doesn't count. It doesn't require me at all. She can skip over. Once those 2 years are gone, she's entitled to those benefits, period. That's the only difference. All right. Bipartisan budget gap for divorced individuals, exactly the same thing. Used to be you could go in and file. You can't do that anymore. Until your spouse files, you can't get it under any circumstances. But there's always a caveat. If you're older than your ex-spouse and you're not currently married, you can claim your own benefit as early as 62 and then switch to a larger divorce spouse benefit when your ex-spouse reaches full retirement age. Listen to this. This can be done more than once if you have multiple qualifying ex-spouses. So, look, I don't want to make light of this, but if you've had multiple 10-year marriages, you've got some options here. You could file, and Social Security makes it very easy. You can pick the one you want to go first. You can pick the lower income one first, ride that out until the other one matures to the highest amount, and then switch. It gives you some options here to get that happening. All right. Common questions we get from divorced individuals. Do divorce benefits affect the current spouse or their dependents? No, they just don't. They could have a current spouse, they could have two ex-spouses all receiving benefits at the same time. Doesn't affect anybody. Is their ex notified? If they go to claim on their ex-spouse, Social Security let them know. No, it doesn't affect them. So why would they? But here's what's interesting. This makes it difficult. Just like HIPAA prevents your doctor from sharing your information, even to another doctor, without your written permission. Social Security can't share your information with anybody without your permission, with one exception. If you're entitled to divorced spouse benefits and you can prove that you're entitled by showing them a 10-year marriage, a marriage license, and a final divorce decree with at least 120 months between them, then they will show you the necessary documents to determine if you qualify and how much you qualify for. They will not give you more information than you need to do that, but they are required to give you that much. Okay. Widows and widowers, survivor benefits. To qualify for survivor benefits, you must be at least 60 years old. Now, this is interesting because this is the earliest anybody can collect on a retirement benefit from Social Security. You get disability benefits before this, but not a retirement benefit. Widows and widowers are the only ones that can do this. And you got to be 60 years old, but you have had to remain unmarried. If your spouse dies at 35 and you remarry, even you pull a Dennis Rodman. I don't know if everybody will know what that is, but Dennis Rodman got married to Carmen Electra in Vegas for less than 24 hours. They woke up and said, "What the heck are we doing?" And they got divorced. But if you got married even for a day, you no longer are entitled to these benefits. But if you didn't, if you remained unmarried to your 60th birthday, even if you married the day after your 60th birthday, while you're married, you can collect these. Now, you had to be married for at least 9 months prior to the death of your spouse, with a couple of exceptions. Full-time fireman killed in line of duty, full-time law enforcement officer killed in line of duty, federal, local, state, doesn't matter, and full-time member of the armed services of the United States government killed in line of duty. That's it. Those are the only exceptions. Okay. I'm going to do a quick case study on widow benefits, and I'm going to do this because it's really about filing. And I want to show you this because I want you to see how critical it is to file correctly. It makes a huge difference for you. All right, this is John, never elected, dies at age 64. Jane, his spouse, well, his full benefit at retirement age would have been $2,150. Jane's 5 years younger. She's age 59. When John dies, she remains unmarried till her 60th birthday. Now, on her 60th birthday, she walks into Social Security and she says, "What can I get?" By the way, her own benefit, this is not John's benefit, this is hers, which she's entitled to, is $1,197 at her age 62. Nothing is available to her at age 60 except the survivor benefit. Let's look and see what the options are. I call option one file without thinking because it's what most of us do. We walk into Social Security and we ask the question, how much can I get? What's the most I can get? Well, if they answer that question correctly, they're going to tell her, look, the only benefit you can take is the survivor benefit because the other benefit's not even available to you for 2 more years. So she says, well, how much is that? She said, well, it's $2,150, but if you take it at 60, it's $1,537 because you're taking it early. She says, I'll take it. Now we're going to do simple math here. No cost of living adjustments, no anything other than what the simple payout is. We're going to assume she lives to 85, 25 more years, and we're going to show you what that is. So we're going to collect $1,537 a month for 25 years or 300 months. And she, over that period of time, because we're doing simple math here, is going to collect $461,100. That's actually quite a bit of money. And what does strategy one look like? Strategy one says, wait, don't take the money. Maybe you're working. You're making $40,000, $50,000 a year. I don't know what you're making, but you're making something. Work 2 more years. Then at 62, don't take the survivor benefit, take your own benefit. It's only $1,197, but which is what, $350 less than the other benefit. But you take that, and then at age 67, when your survivor benefit has completely matured, switch. Take that, it's now $2,104. Or I'm sorry, $2,150. So you take from 62 through 66, 1197, then 67 through 85, you take 2150. That combines, look at the difference here, by having a little bit of a plan over your lifetime, you collect $538,835, almost $80,000 more than you would have collected by just taking the benefit, forgetting about it. Now, most people say number two is better. The second strategy might make more sense. Take the survivor benefit at 60. Maybe you don't have a job. Take it, $1,537 a month. But look, that other benefit, the $1,197, your benefit, it's still your benefit. You can't collect two at once, but it's still maturing. It's growing all the way to full retirement age. And then because it's your benefit, it gets DRCs, delayed retirement credit. So it's 8% plus 8% plus 8% plus 8%. And it matures out, maxes out at your age 70 at $2,108. If you do that, it combines out to $563,904. That's almost $200 shy of $103,000 more over your lifetime. Look, I don't know any of you. I hope to. But who can walk away? I don't care how much money you have. You can't walk away from $100,000 in retirement. Life doesn't work that way. You need to pay attention. And this is one of those things you just can't ignore. All right, if you decide to take your benefit at age 62, 63, 64, 65, for some of you it's 66, and you earned, by that I mean you work and earn $24,480 or more, for every $2 over that $24,480, they're going to take $1 of your Social Security back. It's called the earnings test. Let me put this a little more graphically. Let's say you have a $2,000 a month Social Security. You're collecting, that's $24,000 a year. You start collecting at 62, but you continue to work. And you made $58,000. At the end of the year, nobody's going to say a word. You're going to file your taxes in April, or maybe you're quicker than that. That's when I file them. Or that's at least that's when I get them done, usually 2 weeks before the deadline. And then sometime in July, you're going to get a letter from the Social Security Administration saying, hey, guess what? You owe us back every nickel that we paid you last year, all $24,000. Worse, we want the interest too. Worse, you say, hey, I don't have that anymore. I spent it. And now I'm retired. Now I don't have it. I'm retired. I stopped working. They say, no problem. We have a collection method that beats all others. We just stop paying you your Social Security until it's caught up. 60 Minutes did a report on this about 6 months ago, where people are in desperate straits because of this, because nobody told them. I'm telling you now, you have to pay attention to this. By the way, if you can't pay it and you are in desperate, or it's a low enough amount, there is one other thing that can happen. You can negotiate for them to take half of your Social Security until it's paid off. Those are the only options. In the year that you turn full retirement age, FRA, for most of you, that's either, well, for all of you, it's either 66 or 67. More and more people, it's 67 now. But if you take your benefit at 67, by the way, if you're born after 1960 or after, your FRA is your birthday. So if you're born in June, your FRA, your full retirement age, is in June. Well, if you earn more than $65,160 before your FRA, for every $3 over that, they're going to take back $1 of your benefit. Now, if you're born in February, March, maybe even April, this probably doesn't affect you. But if you're born in June or after, it might absolutely affect you, particularly if you're born in October, November, December. If you take your benefits early in the year, you say January 1st, the year I'm turning 67, hey, I'm just going to take my benefits now, and I'm going to continue to work, or I'm not going to retire until next year because I'm building up a nest egg, or I've got a retirement fund, or I want to take that big cruise or that safari in Africa, or I want to buy a car for retirement. Whatever it is, you have to remember that this can come back to haunt you. It is one of those things that you have to pay attention to. Look, if you wait to earn, if your birthday again is in the early part of the year, you probably do not have a problem. But you need to measure it out and make sure this is going to affect you. If your birthday is in the latter part of the year, you may want to absolutely restrain yourself from taking your Social Security benefit until you know, or until you've done the math to make sure. Now, once you've earned, or once you've passed your FRA, your full retirement age, you can earn a ton of money and there's no reduction in your benefit. But you earn a ton of money, and not even a ton of money these days, you are going to have to deal with taxes on Social Security. I wish I could ask you guys who are on here tonight, how many of you knew Social Security was taxable? Most people don't. Now, look, the reason most people don't is because Social Security was not intended to be taxed. When it was created, it was written right into the original bill that was signed into law by President Roosevelt in 1935, that this was a tax-free benefit. They couldn't tax it. Why? Because they already taxed it. It was written into law that the benefit was not taxed, but your contributions to it were. We all earned Social Security by paying into FICA. You pay that every year in your paychecks, and then at the end of the year, when you file your taxes, you don't get a deduction for that. You pay tax on it. It's a part of your paycheck that there's no deduction for, but you still pay it. Lots of money. Lots of money. This is also true about Medicare. You don't get a deduction for the amount that you pay into Medicare either. But they don't charge you. If you have a $100,000 operation, you don't get taxed for that. But Social Security, you do. Because in 1983, Congress saw baby boomers and stuck a target on us because they thought we were corrupting the system. There were too many of us. And so they took really sharp aim, like William Tell for the apple on his son's head, took a really sharp aim at us and showed us how to recoup a bunch of that money. Now, look, I don't want to make this sound sinister. They did it to save Social Security, but they also left some loopholes, and you have to pay attention. But what most people have done, and unfortunately, this is true of advisors, have just ignored this. And because taxes can be, look, it's not criminal. The federal government is doing what it has to do to make that program survive. But you don't have to just say, oh, well, particularly if you don't see what's going to happen later on as a result of that, you need to prepare for it as much as possible. Let me show you what this looks like and why it is such a problem. By the way, people ask all the time, how complicated is taxes with Social Security? It's complicated. This is publication 915. You can get it at irs.gov/forms 915. It's 33 pages long to tell you how to fill out your taxes with Social Security. But don't worry, it comes with a worksheet. Not that hard, right? This form was created in 1983 by Congress. It is provisional income. This is how they determine your tax. Provisional income. I'm going to explain what provisional income is, how it works, and then I'll explain what's included in it so that you know. But this is how it works. If you're single and you earn $25,000 or more of provisional income, 50% of your Social Security fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. Last dollar of income tax, not first. If you earn $34,000 of provisional income, 85% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. Now, you might wonder, look, there's 2,752 pages in Social Security code. Of them, 83 are about taxes. There's one line in that 83 pages that says, we never tax 15% of your Social Security. Isn't that kind? If you're a married couple, $32,000 of provisional income means 50% of your Social Security fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. $44,000 of provisional income means 85% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. Now, look, I'm going to explain what's included in this, but let me explain why I have such a concern about this. People don't get it. And people ask, why do I say they targeted baby boomers? Because they did. This law was put into place in 1983. In 1983, if your grandparents had $44,000 of provisional income in their income portfolio in retirement, they were amongst the 2% of wealthiest people in retirement in our country. This wasn't aimed at them. It wasn't aimed at your parents. It was aimed squarely at you and me. And it's a problem because, Lordy, it is hurting people's retirement. It is forcing things to happen that they didn't expect to happen. Let me explain what's included in Social Security. By the way, if you wonder, what would it be if they hadn't done that? Look, this has never been prorated. It's never had a cost of living adjustment. It's never done that. If it had, if that 44,000 had been set at a cost of living at the exact same rate that Social Security was, that would be over $142,000 in income today, not 44. And I wouldn't be having this conversation because it would be affecting only a small percentage of people. But it downright gets almost everybody these days. Here's what's included in provisional income. All your income, all of it, all W-2 income, all gross income, all pension income. Doesn't matter what kind of pension. Disability pension, government pension, military pension, all count. All wages, all interest income, all tax-exempt interest income. Maybe you're invested in municipal bonds, thinking that you're going to not pay taxes in retirement. Sorry, it still counts as provisional income. All 1099 income. Maybe you're selling real estate or something else. All all capital gains income. All real estate income. Maybe you own a bunch of rental properties and you collect rents and you've got all these deductions on your Schedule E. Guess what? None of them count. All your rental income counts as provisional income. All business income. You got a small business, a partnership, an LLC, a subchapter S corporation. Maybe you've got a group where you own a piece of a company and that company has a good year and it's saving up to expand. So you get a K1 at the end of the year for your percentage of the profit, but you don't get a check because they're saving that up to buy equipment or hire employees or rent office space, doing what, who knows, doesn't matter. But guess what? That provisional, that K1 still counts as provisional income. Maybe you have a tax refund. Maybe you're like my daughter and son-in-law who save up by overpaying their taxes during the year. So you get a big tax refund every year. And they do that because it's a forced savings plan. They get this big chunk of money all at once. And I've seen them buy roofs and cars and take vacations. And it's a great way for them to save. I hate it because I think it's giving Uncle Sam a tax-free loan. And if they give me a tax-free loan, if they give me a loan, they charge me interest, but they don't pay interest if you pay more than you needed to. So I think it's a bad idea, but that counts in the year that you receive it as provisional income. Now, here's the interesting ones. Maybe you have an IRA, a 401a, a 401k, a 403b, a 457, a SEP, a SERP, a SLRP. It doesn't matter, any tax-deferred account where you didn't pay tax when you contributed the money, you got a deduction, it grew tax-deferred, but when you take it out, it is fully taxable. 100% of that counts as provisional income. Now, some of you savvy people are going, wait a minute, Dave, my advisor said I should put as much money in those accounts as I can because they're growing tax deferred. Yeah, I get it. Advisors say that stuff all the time, but what they should have also included is we need to be careful because when you pull that money out in retirement, it may force you to pay tax on something that when originally created, you were never supposed to pay tax on. And that is the rub. If you have money in 401ks or IRAs or 403bs, you may have a serious problem. Now, maybe you're doing the mental math in your head, and let me give you the last one that should make you scared. When they created this program, they realized that it's possible that inflation won't be enough to get people over. So they threw in 50% of your Social Security benefits. So if you've got a $3,000 benefit and your spouse has a $2,000 benefit, add those together, that's $5,000, that's $60,000 a year. Half of that is 30. You have $30,000 of provisional income without a dime anywhere else. Do you see the problem here? This is absolutely corrupting people's retirement. And if your advisor hasn't gone through this and explained, if they're not savvy with taxes, if they can't figure this out and show you ways to avoid it, you don't have a retirement plan. Let me show you an example of what I'm talking about. This is a case study. It's the last one I've got for this evening. This is a very typical couple, age 64 and 62, just over $34,000 in combined annual Social Security income if they retire at 62. They want to retire at 62. Why? Their starting retirement was right about 752,000 in 401ks and IRAs. $750,000. Now, some of you are saying that's not a lot of money, and I get it. But this couple has a serious tax problem at 752,000. And some of you are saying that's a ton of money, and I got it. They also have a running out of money problem. We're going to say they have a 6% annual return on their investments, 3% inflation. They need $70,000 per year in inflation-adjusted after-tax income. And we're going to say they live to 86 and 89. I'm going to show you what this looks like. If they retire at 62, they're walking away from $186,496 in Social Security benefits. And folks, they need every nickel of that. They don't think they do, but they need every nickel of it to survive retirement without going broke. Here's what this looks like. If they retire at 62, take their Social Security, this is a cash flow. The blue bars are their Social Security. The orange bars, so they're 752 grand. The graded line, the angled line, black line, that's the $70,000 inflation adjusted income year after year. At the end of the orange bars, that white space is empty. It's empty because they've run out of money. 2/3 of the way through retirement, this couple who started with $752,000 is dead broke and living only on Social Security. Now, look, this is a huge problem. Do you remember when I said before 46.1% of middle income Americans end up broke, not have enough money to fund their own funeral? This couple started with $750,000, and that's exactly what's happened to them. Let me show you a corrected cash flow. By that, I mean one that we've done a study on and said, look, you need to do it this way. Still retired at 62, still have the same income. But you tell me, which cash flow would you rather have? The one where they don't run out of money until they die? Or the one where 2/3 of the way through retirement, they have a serious problem? Now, I want you to think for a second, what would this couple do? I mean, the lifestyle changes. I mean, they're probably not living on the street, but the lifestyle changes that are going to happen to them are obscene. That's why this is so critical that you have a plan to deal with this. It just is. This can't be understated. I don't know if somebody's talked to you about this, but if they hadn't, boy, do you need a plan. Now, look, maybe you don't have a lot of money in 401ks. Maybe that's not an issue for you. By the way, federal tax difference, if they didn't run out of money, it's over $100,000. It's a huge, huge deal. By the way, if you look at your statement, your Social Security statement, there's no cost of living. It will not predict for you what that's going to be. You need to have that done, even though it's a guess, because none of us know what it's going to be. But you have to have an idea. You have to have an educated guess to have any kind of plan. Your statement assumes you're working until 62, 70, or your full retirement age, even though most of us don't take our benefit at exactly that time. And maybe the most bothersome thing to me is it doesn't look at both of your records. If you're a married couple and it's not looking at you and your spouse together, which it doesn't do, how in the world do you have a plan? I've been married almost 50 years. My wife and I have investment accounts together. We own a house together. We have cars together. We have savings and checking together. We have all sorts of things, but it's all together. But Social Security looks at her and me like we don't know each other. And I have to coordinate with her to have any kind of ability. And of course, they will not, cannot offer you advice. AARP says whether you're just close to retirement or you're just turning 50, you should be checking your Social Security statement every single year for mistakes. Also, it's important to know that some of those mistakes have statutes of limitations on them, where if you wait too long, you can't fix them at all. I'm going to, every time I do one of these, I offer a complimentary, that's another word for free, personal Social Security analysis. I'm going to do the same tonight. I'm going to explain what that is, then I'm going to explain who's going to do it for you, and then I will explain why we do this. Why do I offer this? It's an expensive thing. Complimentary is free, and it costs a lot, but there's a reason why we do it. All right, here's what it includes. If to do any kind of planning, you need to understand break-even concepts. Well, when does it make sense? And what are the benefits and the drawbacks of taking it early? We'll map that out for you in detail in writing. We will give you a point and click example of what to do. It will be easy to understand, easy to implement. It will not be complex. We'll show you alternatives and deal with shortfalls. So if you have a shortfall, if we reveal one, we'll give you answers on how to fix that, how to take care of it. And then what if there are alternatives? What if I don't like this? What would it look like if we did this? We'll show you and make it clear to you so you know the options. And then we'll look at your retirement income, cash flow, tax analysis. If there's a way to save you money in taxes, which there almost always is, we'll dictate, we'll show you, we'll put it in writing, and we'll look at your cash flow and figure what that is and whether you're doing it right. We'll take a look at your income. We'll see what your projections are on your assets and figure out whether you're overestimating or even underestimating what those can do for you. Both are bad. Underestimating is terrible because you've got money, you don't have enough money to pay your bills. But overestimating or underestimating is even, I mean, some people say it's worse. This happens far more than people realize. They didn't have a good understanding and they were scared. And maybe they were scared by their advisor, and they end up at 80 or 85 looking back and looking at their assets and realizing, I have a ton of money. I wish somebody had told me this 10 or 15 years ago. I would have done something with it when I could have enjoyed it. But what am I going to do now? That is a sorry state. And if, look, this happens so much, don't misunderstand me. It's just poor planning. And advisors allow their clients to do that because it's less risk to them. But it just requires work and effort to understand what the options are. But I look, last year, 3 months ago, I came back from a 30-day trip to Hawaii. Not because I didn't have the money, but because I did. And I could. And my wife and I we're at that age where if we don't use it, we can't take it with us. So we're going to enjoy it. And then what about Roth conversions? Is this something I should be looking at, Dave? And can you show me how much I should do, when I should do it? And look, how much is it going to save in taxes? Because if I can't figure that out, why would I want to do it? We will do that all for you. And look, we'll show you how to coordinate. If you have a retirement plan, blessings. But if it doesn't include coordinating everything, your pensions, your Social Security, your qualified, non-qualified assets, IRAs, 401ks, pension plans, insurance plans, TSPs, everything, then you don't have a plan. Everything's got to be looked at and coordinated to make sure that you're getting the maximum benefit and you're paying the least amount of taxes. All right. If you haven't done this already, go to www.ssa.gov. That's the Social Security government website. It's where you get your Social Security report. Many of you have already done this. Good. It's where you can print it out. If you haven't done it, you'll need to create a login and a password. They'll be with you for the rest of your life. And then let me show you next thing. All right, I'm going to give you two options tonight. I'll explain what those options are, and then I'll explain what's next. Option one, it's everything I just mentioned. It's the complementary, it's a complete review, taxes, assets, income, Roth conversions, everything that you need to know. Complete focusing on filing strategies, tax strategy, and asset coordination. Everything that you need, it's right there. That's option one. Now, if you've got money in 401ks, IRAs, something like that, if you've got a significant amount of non-qualified assets, this is important too. But some of you are here tonight because you don't have those. Your main focus is Social Security because that's your income in retirement. I get it. If that's it, it's not a question of taxes. If you only have Social Security, you will not be paying taxes in retirement. But you will need a timing strategy. That's why I wrote the workbook. The workbook will walk you through soup to nuts, the timing strategy of when to take your best trek at Social Security. That's it. That's option two. Option two will get you the workbook. We'll get it to you right away. Option one is the tax planning. It's everything else. Option two is it's the workbook. 1, 2, 3. That's it. All right. I told you I would tell you what's in it. Then I will tell you who's going to do it for you. I've asked a very good friend of mine, Chris Brent, to jump in tonight. Chris is fascinating. Let me tell you his background. He is fascinating. So he earned his degree, and Chris was so, look, he's brilliant. He became a professor at a college. Look, his background in math is so incredible that, look, teaching came very natural to him. He taught at Marygrove College, and honing his skills as a teacher really helped him understand what he wanted to do. Chris has always loved finance, always loved math. He took to it at a very early age. But here's the thing. The skills at teaching at the college level, it helped him, it made the transition to financial planning incredibly easy. Now, what is even more interesting about Chris is he's a professional golfer. Not a playing pro, a teaching pro. He's that guy that gives you lessons on how to become an incredible golfer. Now, ladies, if your husband isn't on tonight, this might lure him to come meet Chris. But here's the thing about Chris. Teaching golf is one of the hardest things in the world. Tiger Woods tells people that he's always had a coach and he always will. Because the game is more mental than it is physical. It just is hard. But the ability to teach someone something so technical is a matter of communication. And that's what Chris has got in spades. Look, one of the things I love about Chris is the ability to communicate at an expert level, but not just on a pro level in golfing, not just on a classroom level in finance, but at a personal level in terms of planning. He's gifted at it. That's who I've asked to sit with you this evening. I've asked him to open his calendar for you the next couple of weeks. I'm going to ask our tech team in a minute to open up. They'll put a link in the chat at the bottom of the chat. You can just click on that and get to it. If you want to go use a QR code, they'll put that up on the screen as well. The QR code is you just hold your phone camera up to it, the actual camera up to it. Don't take a picture, but you'll see a orange or yellow square. Just touch that and it'll take you right to it as well. Let me make sure that they're putting that up. I see my tech team. There it is. There's the QR code right there, and they'll put the link down there as well. Here's the thing. Take advantage of this. It is so worth it. I told you I would tell you who did it. That's Chris. I told you about it. That's done. Now I said I would tell you why. Here's why. I told you before, I own a company, City Center Advisors. My son and I own it. We're incredibly successful. I've built that entire company for more than a decade doing exactly this and nothing else. I know the quality of the work that we do, actual retirement planning at the highest level, for the most part, blows people away. People have never seen it. I've had clients tell us they've had advisors, they've had multiple advisors. They've never seen anything like we do. Nobody goes into the in-depth nature of what planning is. Nobody explains it in a way that they understand it so well. Nobody gets it like we do. And when we communicate that, people are overwhelmed. If you've got an advisor, my goodness, I hope that you will sit down with him, because if for nothing else, just to check up, just a second opinion, to see where you are and where you should be. But if you don't, my goodness, this is one of those things, particularly with taxes, you just cannot miss. It's too important. It's one of those things that you just can't ignore. And because it is so critical, and the earlier you do it, the better, we know that if you meet with somebody like Chris, you're going to be wowed. I don't mean a little, I mean a lot. I'm willing to stake our reputation. We're willing to work for free to show you how good it is, because we know if you see it and you recognize it, you'll want more. That's it. That's it, folks. That's the entire secret here, is that we believe if you see it, you'll recognize it and you'll want more. That's it. Okay. I am going to ask our tech team to open it up. Oh, man, I went a little long. Open it up for the Q&A. If we pull them up now, I'll start answering them. Thanks for your patience with me tonight. This is Raymond. I'm 68. When is the best time to file? Well, if you're only interested in the timing for filing, the workbook will take your situation, but your age isn't enough to tell. There's way more that you're going to have to go through to get to that. You want to know a couple of things. One is, well, look, you're past full retirement age, so there's no reduction in your benefit. So that's one thing out of the way. But the question is, what's the rest of your finances like? How much income do you have? How much are you going to need long term? I don't know when the best time to file is. If you have other assets, Chris will work that out for you. If not, it's just a question of timing, and that's what the workbook will do. But that's a good question. Thank you. All right, next question. Regina, hello, I'm 63 years old. I have hypertension, gout, obese, and what else? 62, what can I do now? This gout and being obese, the back pain really hurts. Still want to work part-time, but I hurt too bad and can't stand long. Well, I don't know. If you're working now, the question is how long you can stand. Qualifying for disability, Regina, is not easy. So you have an option. You could take your benefit, but at 62, it's going to be significantly smaller, 75% of what your full retirement age benefit is. The question is, what's worse? How much do you need? How can you survive on that? Because if that's the only income, if inflation kicks in, Social Security is not going to keep up with it. So you have to say, okay, 10 years from now, is that $1,500 a month going to be enough when I could have waited and got 22 or 24? Those are the questions that you have to ask. The workbook will walk you through some of that. If you have other assets, we can show you what that is. But it's a very complicated question. And I don't know the answer. It depends on a lot of things. But you're going to get a significantly reduced amount by taking it at 62. The other problem is if you take disability, let's say you qualified for disability, when you get your full retirement age benefit, it's going to be the same amount because you will have taken it early and they will count that against you. So if you get $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month, it's not going to change when you turn 66 or 67. It's going to stay the same. Now you'll get cost of living adjustments, but that's it. Nothing else. Good luck to you. Thank you so much. All right, Julia. Julie, I'm sorry. I'm coming up on full retirement age. Should I start drying my ex-husband's Social Security and save mine till I'm 70? I plan on keep working. Well, the question is, you're not drying his. It doesn't affect his at all. And I'm assuming that you're still married, so it doesn't matter whether you are or aren't. If you take his, he has to be taking his first, unless you're divorced for at least 2 years and you had a 10-year marriage, then you don't need to. But if you start taking his, here's the bad news. If yours is bigger, Julie, they're not going to give it to you. That's deemed filing. They're going to make you take yours. If you go in to file for Social Security and your benefit, your spousal benefit, is $1 less than your benefit, they're going to make you take yours. It's the only option you have. So you really don't have a choice. Great question. All right, next question. Oh, that might be it. All right. Okay. Looks like we're at the end of the questions. Let me give you 10 or 15 seconds here in case somebody's typing. Other than that, I will prepare you all. Thanks for hanging with me. I will wish you a good night. Good luck. Wonderful planning. If you're meeting with Chris, boy, you're going to enjoy it. I hope you'll take advantage of that. Otherwise, may you all have a wonderful. Oh, there's one last question. Okay, let's get this one here. Tech, I see one last question from Jana. All right, hi, this is Jana. Please elaborate about divorce benefits. I was married 10 years. I'm 66. My ex-husband retired at 62. His income was substantially higher than mine. Trying to determine. Well, again, if your ex-husband's benefit, if half of his benefit is, you're 66, so I'm assuming you're full retirement age. If your benefit, if half of his benefit is more than your benefit, then you can take that and then switch later when you're say at 70 when yours maxes out. But if his benefit is less than half of yours, it's not an option. You're only going to be able to take yours. But that's what I just said to Gina. So it's the same thing. But look, that is one of those things that we can figure. So the workbook will work it out for you, tell you. You're going to need to know what his benefit was. And if you can't ask him, you can get that from Social Security, you need to be able to produce copies of your marriage license. You can get that from the county you were married in, and the final divorce decree that comes from the court that assigned or awarded the divorce. But that's the answer. Great question. Okay. We're going to wish you good night, good luck, great planning, and may you all have a wonderful, wonderful, peaceful, well earned retirement. Good night, everybody.